Hi everyone, in today's tutorial we're going to learn how to make a male figure. So first we're going to start off with the body. So I've got some of the saracino skin tone and I've put in some chestnut in there. And we're going to start off with quite a big chunk and roll it into sort of a rectangular shape. To create the neckline, we're just going to use the back of the thumbs to make those lines, and you're going to twist up to get the neck area. Now this is just a rough shape to start off with, and we're going to trim off any excess with the knife. You will need to just re-round those corners off just to make it a little bit more natural. Just putting some corn flour down so that it doesn't stick, and we're just going to use our fingers just to push up the shoulders and push the fondant into place where we need it. Once you're happy with the rough shape, trim off some excess from the neck. And then I've just got my tool here, and we're just going to create the lines in for the neck. So you're just pushing two bits of fondant together and smoothing that out with your fingers. And the good thing about saracino is you can re-go over this as many times as what's needed. We're going to trim off an area for the arms to go onto, and then with the same tool we're then going to put in the chest plate. So we're going to start at the bottom and just create a little indentation, and we always want to be smoothing it out with our fingers. We're going to draw the rough shape. This is going to be the pectoral area. Now this figure has not got his top off, but I still wanted to put in this detail just because the t-shirt that he's wearing is quite tight, so I wanted you to be able to see some of this through the t-shirt that we're going to put on later on. So just keep redefining those lines until you're happy with the shape, and then we're going to create a line all the way down the belly, and then we're going to put a belly button in the bottom. Now once you're happy with the rough shape, we're going to then sort of redefine where we've gone over and take in the bottom a little bit. So we don't want the figure to be fully straight down, we want him to have a little bit where he comes in a little bit at the waist. Just rounding off that area near the pectorals, and then we're just going to push the fondant down and trim off any excess that's below the belly button. Now this figure was a cake topper, and the figure was coming out of the top of the cake, so there was no need for me to create legs or anything like that. And once you're happy, we're going to stick a cocktail stick through for a little bit of support. So re-smoothing over those areas if needed. And this is what you should have when you finish the body. Once you're happy with the shape of the body, we're going to put that to one side to dry, and we're going to start working on the face. So with the face area, we have the same colour as the body, and we're going to roll a teardrop shape, and then with the back of the brush we're just going to create an indentation across the face, smoothing this out and pushing down either side to create sort of like an oblong shape for the face. A small brush to create those lines there, so you're looking for a T shape that goes across the front and down the middle. And you can see I'm just pushing in the sockets for the eyes and then pinching with my fingers up to create the nose. Now I smooth with my fingers, I smooth with my modelling tools, anything that you feel comfortable with just to create that shape. So we're going to put in some nostrils, and don't worry if these close up while you're working on the face because you can re-put them in later on. So I'm just tucking in the sides of the nose, and then I'm going to create the mouth area. So with the scalpel, I'm just creating a straight line, and I'm going to lift the top bit up. And with the pad of your finger, you're going to push that bit up, and that's going to create the top lip. And then with our paintbrush, we're going to create two indentations either side of the mouth. This is going to give us the chin, but it's also going to give us the bottom lip. And then your brush goes across and you roll, and you're just pushing it up, and that gives you the rough shape of your lip. Now with my Dresden tool, I'm just smoothing out that line and working and smoothing out the line at the top of the lip because you want it to be quite flat but also come into the lip as well. And then with the balling tool, we're just going to create that little dip that gives you the cupid's bow at the top of your lip. Then we're going to go back to the nose. And so we're creating the nostril area here. So you want to tuck that in and you're basically going around the nose, separating the nose from the side of the face. And again, you can use whichever tools you want. I will put a link in the description box below of all the tools that I've used for this tutorial. And again, it's just whichever you feel works best for you. So we're always working on different parts of the face. We are doing the nose, letting it dry a little bit, then going back to the mouth, just until you're happy with all the features that you've got. They all do look a bit strange at this time because you've got a really big chin area, and that's what we're going to take off later on. So with the same brush that you created the indentations in, we're just going to take off some of that chin area. So we're going across at the bottom and then up at the sides towards where the jaw would touch the ear. So you're just lining that up and just taking off any excess. You can push it with your thumbs, your fingers, your brushes, and then if you take your brush and sort of like push it away, it'll just roll down and sort of create another part of that we can chop off later. So constantly checking that the face is smooth and we haven't got any stretch marks from where we've pulled the neck down. And I'm just tweezing it together with my fingers to create almost like a neck, and then that just gives us something that we can trim off later. So I'm just twisting it off, and then we're just going to smooth over that part there. Again, going back to the lips just to make sure they're the right shape, pulling in a little bit at the chin, and then rubbing out any lines that we don't want to be there at all. You will find yourself repeatedly going over areas of the face just to make sure that it's perfect. And then with the balling tool, just creating the eye sockets a little bit more. If you feel like you're doing too much, you can leave it, go away for 10 minutes, and then come back and look and see what it is that you need to do. Re-putting in the nostrils because we've played around with it a little bit. And just pushing up at the corners of the mouth. So you can see I keep going over the same areas just to get it how I want it to look. If you're basing it on a person, then it is really good to have a picture of that person on your work table so you can go back and see which areas you need to change. So I just push the lip up a little bit more, and then I'm just pulling it down with my modelling tool just to create that illusion of a bigger lip. I always recommend, if you're doing a detailed face, to use something like Saracino because it is such a good modelling paste to work with in regards to shaping and reshaping and putting in fine details. It doesn't dry out quickly. It takes quite a few days to dry. So you can constantly take on and add in. It's really good for blending. If you wanted to add extra pieces of fondant to create, I don't know, bigger cheeks or a chin, it's really good to blend those areas in. So check your size of your head just against your figure, and then we're going to go in and do the eye detail. So we're roughly just making a mark of where we want the eyes to go, and then we're just going to cut this out with our scalpel and just take it out. So once you've got that little bit out, we're going to put the Dresden tool in, and we're going to just soften up the area that we've taken out, and sort of like create a bit of an eyelid on the top and on the bottom before we put our white paste in there. So try to mark in the top of the eyelid whilst the eye's not in there. I prefer to add modelling paste to it anyway to create that shape. So push your white in, and we're going to smooth that over. And then with the same coloured skin tone that we had before, we're just going to roll some fine parts out, and then we're going to stick that on top of the eye and on the bottom, and this is going to create the eyelid. So I always measure how much I will need first. And then if you've got one of the Tshirt tools here that you can see with the grey nib on the end, they're really good for blending in. It's basically like a finger, and and you can use it to blend in all sorts. It works really, really well. If you haven't got that, your Dresden tool will work just as well with the Saracino modelling paste. So we're going to push that into place and trim off any excess, and then we're just going to blend in that join line. So you always want to be pushing away from the eye socket itself, because you don't want it to come down. You want it to sort of blend into that the top part of the eye socket. And then we're going to do the same for the bottom. So the bottom one needs to be a little bit thinner than the top, and just sticking it on with a little bit of water and pushing it into place. Now the excess for that one you can blend in by pushing up, and that's going to create the join for the corner of the outer eye. And then you blend in, pushing down towards the cheek area. So you can see I'm using a variety of tools in this instance, but you do just need the one really, which is the Dresden tool. We're also going to create the little tear duct that's in the eye as well, and we're simply just going to use the back of our stitching tool to create that, because we're just going to push that line, the corner of that tool, into the eye socket at the bottom, and it's going to create that effect. So you can see I've just pulled it down there, and it just totally changes the shape of the eye and makes it look a little bit more natural. So you want to do the same for the other side of the face as well. And then once you're happy with the lips, I've got a just re-putting in the smile line with my scalpel, and then I've got the, I can't remember what it's called now, the scriber needle tool, and I'm just going to create little lines in the lips, and that's just going to give it a more natural look. So once you've done your face and you've done both eyes, we're going to take some of the same coloured fondant that we used for the face. Now I always do this if it's brown eyes. Obviously if it's blue you're going to need some blue fondant, but we're rolling some tiny dots roughly the same size as each other, and we're just going to flatten them, and then we're going to stick them on the eyes that we've made. Just using a tiny little bit of water. It doesn't matter too much about the shape, because we are going to use our tool to flatten those down anyway. So I always find it better to pick these up with a brush with a little bit of water on, and just use the back of the Dresden tool just to push that in place. Try to get the other one matching. With this one he's kind of looking a little bit towards the front of the cake. You can change the position of the eyes if you wanted him to look a different way. So just taking off a little bit of excess, and then we're going to take a bit of a darker brown, and you just want a tiny little bit on your brush, and we're going to paint all the way around the eye. And then we're going to use a different brush, and we're just going to pull that colour into the centre of the eye, and this is going to give quite a natural look for the eyes. Doing the same with the other side, and again a dry brush, and we're just going to pull that in to the middle of the eye. You can add different shades. If you was doing blue, you could use a dark blue and a bit of green, which gives you quite a nice colour for blue eyes. And then I've just got some peach colour in, and I'm just going to put this a little bit on the lips. Usually people's lips are not the same colour as their skin tone anyway. And I've got a tiny little bit of rose, and I'm just going to add that in as well. You don't want too much, because we don't want to make him look like he's got lipstick on. And we're just going to put a little bit of blusher on as well. So before we put anything else on the face, I'm just mixing a bit of the peach colour with a little bit of brown, and we're going to use this to shade in certain areas. So we want to shade in a little bit on the nostrils, shade in a bit underneath the eyes, shade in around the top of the eyes, and we don't want to use a lot. We just want to create a little bit more depth to the face than currently there is. So anywhere where there's creases or natural shadows on the face, that's where you want to brush some of this colour in. Now I've got some of my dark brown again, and just a really thin brush, and we're just going to create a line underneath the eye and on the top of the eye, and this is going to give us the outline of the eye that's usually a little bit darker than our skin tone. If you make a mistake with this, you can just take it off with a little bit of water. And we're just going to create some tiny eyelashes on the bottom and then some tiny eyelashes on the top as well. Now, because this is a man, we don't want them too long. And we've got our eyebrows that we're going to do as well. Now, I like to paint the eyebrows on for men and women. And I always like to paint them on a little bit darker than what we need. And then I'll use a little bit of kitchen roll and I'll pat the kitchen roll on, and it'll take off a lot of that colour, leave a lighter colour behind, and then we can just repaint in some lines, and it just gives a little bit more of a natural looking eyebrow than just painting it straight on in one go. So now we're going to put the blacks in the eyes. So again, just little bits of black fondant, and we're just going to stick them in with a little bit of water. Try to get them both the same size. And they want to be central to the eye. So regardless of where the eye is looking, the black bits always want to be central to the colour. So I'm just going over the outside of the eye, just colouring it in a bit of a darker brown. And now we're going to attach the body and the head together. So I've got some cocktail sticks that I've put in the bottom of the body, and I've put that onto a polystyrene dummy. We're wetting the part that's coming out for the neck, and then I'm just attaching the head. So you can see there's a gap around the side. We've got some same coloured fondant in the saracino, and I'm just literally going to blend that in and push it up. Now once it's fully blended, look, you can't even really see the join. And just keep working at it until it's really smooth. We should have something that looks like this so far. And now we're going to create, after we've put the whites in the eyes, we're going to create the t-shirt and the jacket. So just push those into place. Make sure that they're at the same side of each eye. So for the t-shirt, again, I've got some saracino in white. I've used my square cutter just to create the V-neck. And we're going to stick this on the body. Now, I wanted it to be a little bit tight to the body, which is why I went into the detail of the chest area and obviously the lines for the neck. So we're going to push that in. Now, because we've got a jacket, we don't need to cover the back. I'm going to take off any excess and I'm just going to bring it around the side. Now, with the back of the stitching tool, I'm pushing it in just to create folds in the t-shirt, because obviously the t-shirt will have movement. And you can keep playing about with this longer than what I did to create more folds if you wanted. I'm just taking off any excess, and then we're just going to smooth out that line that joins it to the skin. That's what you should have for the t-shirt. And then I've put this one in a bomber jacket that's in a khaki green. So I've taken some of my saracino and coloured it in the khaki green, and we're going to trim it, and we just need to keep checking against the model that we've got for size, making sure that we've got enough to cover the back, and it's going to come partly way around the front of the body as well. So you can keep trying it, rolling it out thinner if need be. I think it took me about 5 or 6 goes to get it the right shape, trimming off areas for the shoulders and everything like that. So you can see on the shoulders I've pinched up that extra bit of fabric there. I've got the jacket where I want to go at the side and the back, and I've pinched those top bits there, and we're just going to trim. Now, even if that does leave a line there, that's a natural line on most jackets anyway. So once you've done that, you need to do the same for the other side. I'm going to trim off that area there, just where the jacket comes, because it's coming down at an unnatural angle. So I'm just going to take that off so it matches the other side, and then take off again that shoulder area. Now you can flatten it out, you can smooth it, you can use your modelling tool to get rid of that line if you wanted to and re-put in another line. And I'm just sticking the jacket down to parts of the body that I want it to be stuck down to. And then with the back of my Dresden tool, I'm just smoothing out that line with a little bit of water. Keep playing about with it until you're happy. The watermarks that we've made, once it's dried, you won't be able to see those at all. And just keep taking off any excess that you need or pulling out parts of the jacket where you want it to look like it's resting on the cake. And then we want to do the same for the other side. So trim off any part of the jacket that shouldn't be there. And that's what you should have so far. So for the arms, I've rolled a long sausage shape, quite thin, and we've taken off the corner. I'm just measured that against the side of my figure, and I'm just putting in some lines for movement. And then we're going to put this in a bit of water on. I'm going to stick that onto our figure. Now I've got one arm going down at the side of the body, and the other arm is up in the air holding a mobile phone, taking a selfie. So for the other side, we're doing exactly the same thing. You want to cut your shape. I've used that tool there to create a hole in the arm for the hand to sit in. And we're just creating different lines on the body, on the arm to create movement. And then once you're happy with the size, just check that against the figure that you've done, that it's the right length. And then you can leave that to one side to dry off a little bit. I've got some floral wire and I'm just twisting that together. Part of this is going to go in the figure that we've got and part is going to go in the arm. And that's what's going to keep the arm upright without it dropping off. So you want part to go in the body and part to go in the arm. So you need to create a right angle. And you're going to push your wire in. And then you're going to stick the other part of the wire in the body. Now you will need to wet that so it sticks to the fondant inside, and I'm just using some tweezers to push that into place. And we will need to let this rest up against something to dry because we don't want it to drop down while it's drying. So you can see I've just holded it, I'm redoing the lines that I've put in previously. For the hand, I've taken some of my skin toned fondant and we're just going to create a simple hand shape. Now I do have a video that's a little bit slower for the hand shape that you want to create, but this is quite a long video, so I've tried to speed it up a little bit, but the more important parts, which is the face, to slow it down a little bit so you can all see what I'm doing. So there's your hand shape. You want to cut in the middle and then take those bits and cut them in half again. And then we're going to take off any of the excess of the fingers because people's fingers don't get wider as they get to the top, they get a little bit thinner. And so you just want one of these scriber tools or a craft needle to create those, a craft knife, sorry, to create those shapes. So I've got a little rectangular of black modelling paste, and that's just going to sit in the hand as if it's a phone. So you want to create the lines on the inside of the fingers. That's just going to make the fingers easier to bend. And we're just literally wrapping it around that simple phone shape that we've got. Using a little bit of water to stick them together. And then trimming off any excess from the bottom of the wrist. You may need to just recreate the lines of the fingers if you've smoothed them or hit them a little bit when you're putting it on. And then I'm just going to take a cocktail stick and stick that in the arm. And then that's going to give the hand something to stick to. See, I'm just pushing that into place and angling it so that it's at the face. And I've just propped it up against a few things just to make sure that it doesn't drop down while it's drying. So next we're going to do the ears. Now I should have done these before I put the head on the body, but I completely forgot. So I've just taken some small pieces of fondant and we're just going to stick those, roll them into circles and stick them on the side of the face, and then use our brush to create the ear part. So just pushing it in and then doing the same on the other side. Now with this one I wanted to put a hat on, so you could put hair on at this stage if you wanted, but the person that this was wearing a hat in the picture that I had. So I've got some of my black saracino and I've just rolled it out, and I'm just going to cut a rough circle shape in for the hat. So I've left this overnight to dry, so you can see the arm's fully supporting itself up now. And we're just going to put a little bit of water on the head and then press that into place. Now I didn't use water when I put this on, but you can do if you want to. And I'm just trimming off the back. Now you don't need to worry about any lines that are going to be at the back because we're going to create sort of like a ribbed effect for the hat. So you can see I'm just working my way around the head and I'm just pulling it all into the centre and smoothing over any lines that we've got. Now we want to create the ribbed part of the hat that's obviously like folded up. So I've got a thin piece of black fondant, cutting it out to the same thickness and just using the back of my stitching tool just to create those little lines for the ribbed bit. And then we're going to trim this again, just take off any excess that's not needed. And then we're going to wrap this around the head. Now you always want to wrap from the front first, so put it around the front of the head, and then we're going to take it all the way around to the back. So just a little bit of water all the way around, and then push it into place. So after that's on, we're going to create just some more little details for the jacket. So I've taken again just a thin strip of the khaki colour, and this is going to be the ribbed part that goes around the neck. So it's like the collar of the jacket. So I've just got my knife and I'm just creating in some tiny little lines, and then we're going to wrap that around the neck for the jacket. So again, just a little bit of water sticking this on. And then once that's in place, you can trim off any excess, make it come more around the top of the neck if you want to. And then again with the other side. So it's a lot easier to do when it's had time to dry overnight because obviously you're not putting marks in the fresh fondant. And then we're just going to create the zip lines. So again, some really tiny bits of fondant, and we're just going to stick that on with a little bit of water. So just attaching it from where the top of the jacket starts and just pushing that into place and trimming off any excess. Now you want to do the same for the other side. And then I've just got some gold dust and I've just had a bit of dipping solution in there, and I'm just going to paint this on. Now I did end up doing 2 layers because I put in far too much liquid for the amount of dust that was there. And then you want to ideally let this dry again overnight, just so that when it comes out of the polystyrene, you're not pulling anything off. So just touching up any areas that you need to. And then once you've finished, you should have something that looks like this. I hope you like this video. To see more of my tutorials, please click the links on the screen now. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future videos. Thanks for watching.